Hello, everyone, the world, everyone that's listening. Welcome to another episode of Mr. Speaker Speaks. You know, it's the podcast that informs, challenges, and inspires. This is real talk from real people about real things. And it's the show where the guests get to speak. You can learn more about me at vincenttedwards.com or join my online community at vincentondemand.com. It's where you can get exclusive access to trainings, videos, and more to help you pivot into your purpose with power and precision. Today, I have a great medical expert that's going to share with us some stuff to help us with our gut brain connection and let us know how food affects the mood. I like that, how food affects the mood. You know how sometimes we have the lighting and all of that, but how the food affects the mood. This is going to be a great show. My guest is Dr. Kulreet Chaudhary, and she is a neurologist, and we're going to talk about that real quick. I want to let you know that today's show is brought to you in part by Serious Web Solutions. Your success is our success. Everything from website development, graphic designs to e-commerce solutions. Tell them you heard about them right here on Mr. Speaker Speaks. That's SeriousWebSolutions.com, and Sirius is spelled Sirius. Also, oh men, when you're ever in Tallahassee and you need a fresh cut, go by and see my barber, Dante, at Blaze Barbershop, 2202 Lake Bradford Road, Suite A. He is great. He will make you look sharp, look right. He keeps me ready not only for radio, but for video as well. So just go by and see Dante at Blades Barbershop. Like always, here on Mr. Speaker Speaks, we go to the Lord in prayer. Heavenly Father, we truly thank you for another day that you've allowed us to be here, not just to be here, but so that we can interact and help one another, teach one another, learn from one another. And God, we say thank you. And now I just ask for your presence to be here, to lead and guide this conversation, that those who hear will benefit, that those who hear will learn, and it will help them to improve their lives. And I will give you all the praise, all the glory in your son Jesus' name. Amen. Our inspirational verse today comes from the book of Psalms, Psalm 145, verses 18 and 19. And it reads, "The Lord is nigh unto all them that call upon him, to all that call upon him in truth. He will fulfill the desire of them that fear him. He also will hear their cry and will save them." My cry today is that I learn something about this gut brain connection to save me from these 20 pounds that I need to lose. My guest today, Dr. Colby, is a neurologist, a neuroscientist, and an internationally recognized expert in the ancient practice of Ayurvedic medicine. She earned her medical degree at Loma Linda University School of Medicine, completed her internship at University of California, Los Angeles, UCLA, and I love football. I love it.
So does my
And,
son.
and neurology residency at University of California, San Diego. She is the author of The Prime and Sound Medicine, is a pioneer in the field of integrative medicine, and is a highly sought after speaker, researcher, and advisor for healthy directions. She is the former director of Wellspring Health in Scripps Memorial Hospital, where she successfully combined conventional treatments with Ayurvedic practices of detoxification, diet, and lifestyle management to help patients effectively manage chronic neurological disorders such as multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's disease, and migraine headaches. Her program was so successful that it is now used for a wide range of health concerns, including weight issues and chronic disease. Through her integrative approach, the doctor teaches her patients about the connection between mind, body, and spirit, which impacts every aspect of health, both physically and mentally. And I'm so blessed because she has an extensive media experience, including being a regular medical contributor for the Dr. Oz show. We have a world-renowned celebrity right here on Mr. Speaker Speaks.
How do, how do I fulfill all those expectations? We started off as being like a prayer from God. You're setting the bar pretty high there, Vincent.
Oh,
I gotta deliver from the big guy now.
hey, well, it's all right. We're gonna start with it. In all that you do and all that you've done in life,
Mhm.
what really brings you joy, Dr. Coley?
Well, I think there's two types of joys. There's the joy that we have from our families, right? That joy never gets replicated by work. And so there's just the joy of being a mom. And I love seeing the human being that my son is becoming. But then there's also the joy of seeing other people's children, other people's family members healing from their conditions, and not just the physical conditions, but also the corresponding like psychological jails that come with a lot of these conditions. And so that kind of extends my family in a sense. Like when I see their families improving, it makes me think of how much I love my son, how much I love my husband. So it's such a joy to see other people's children and other people's spouses also healing.
Did you always want to become a doctor?
Yeah, it's one of those things that it's like it was a light that I was born with. I was 4 years old when I first started telling people that I'm going to be a physician, and I just always knew it. And I remember being on a plane once with a lady. I was maybe 9 years old. Um, and she asked me, like, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I said, oh, I'm going to be a physician. She goes, well, that's really hard. It's a really long path. And I just looked at her like I couldn't even understand what she was saying, because it was like telling me it's going to be hard to have black hair, which my hair is already black. Like it was something I already was, really young age. I knew this is what I was going to come to do.
Yeah. What brought you to that realization? You say you already knew. What was it on the inside of you? What took place? Was there something in your life that happened? Was it just a dream or vision, or did you watch a television show or something? What really triggered that desire and that passion for medicine?
I think I was wired for that type of work. I remember I was born in India and I came to the US when I was 4 years old. And I remember being really young. I must have been only 2 or 3 in India. And we were driving, and I remember looking at the small children that were begging on the street. And I was just completely overcome by the knowledge of their suffering and seeing how young they were, right? When they were already up against those odds. And I remember just in that instant, like I knew I came here to help people. And that was a driving force, was to make sure that whoever was around, whoever I worked with, I could reduce their suffering in some way.
And I love it when you said wired, which bridges that gap to neurology.
I
Why?
love that. You're good at this. You're good at this.
Why, out of all the different types of medicine that you could practice, why neurologist? Why neuroscience?
When I did my neurology residency as a medical student, it was like instant. Just the same thing. Like I knew I was going to be a physician. Once I hit neurology, I knew this was what I was going to do, because I knew that studying the brain, studying the nervous system was going to take more than a lifetime. We know so little about it, and it's so unlike other organ systems because there's an inner intelligence. There's this thing we call the mind that's somehow wired into all of those neurons. And for me, it was like the next big black box that we were going to be discovering, over the course of my lifetime, of what exactly does this organ do? What are its potentials? How does it influence the rest of the body? And I can say, like, the deeper and deeper I go into the study of the brain and the bigger picture of the mind, the more it's just leading me to a deeper understanding of myself. So it's exactly what I had hoped it was going to be, which was a better understanding of myself and human beings in general.
Why is it that we know so little about the brain itself and how it functions? Is that something that's hard to really work on from a medical perspective? And what brings this to mind is, the NFL. I love football, and they deal with all these concussions and all of that,
Mhm.
and they say they have to wait until they're dead to examine the brain.
Yes.
Is it CTE? So is that the challenge?
No, the challenge with neurology is that in medicine, we tend to be very reductionist, right? So when we look at the liver, we go, oh, there it is. There it is located right underneath the ribs. And, we like to confine things. Whereas with the brain, sure, you could study it, either while living or after autopsy, but where would you be able to pinpoint where the consciousness is located, where the mind is located? And so it challenges our complete reductionist view of the body. And this was one of the reasons why I, at a certain point, like transitioned into my training of Ayurveda, which is the ancient medical system of India, because it had a much deeper explanation of the brain and the mind, and it wasn't reductionist, and it kind of it brought my understanding outward of like, oh, hold on, the brain is an organ that is involved in the creation of consciousness. It's involved in creation of the mind, but there's so much more than that. The mind goes so much beyond just simply this little organ. So I eventually had to look at older medical systems to really be able to, like, you know answer this question I had of what exactly is the mind, what exactly is consciousness, and how does it affect our health.
Hmm. And so it was that question, how, that made you make a transition from practicing traditional medicine to being an expert in Ayurvedic medicine.
Well, okay, so I set myself up to be a lot more elegant in my transition. Let's say that that's eventually what peaked it. But the reason why I went into Ayurveda was I was a neurologist and I developed migraine headaches. And this is how humility changes the course of your life. So let me go back and say I was an arrogant neurologist,
Hmm.
meaning I felt so confident in this new knowledge I had received and felt so confident about my capacity to help people. And then all of a sudden, I developed migraine headaches. And all the medications I was on, either the side effects were worse. Well, you know this too. I mean, the side effects are sometimes worse,
Oh,
right,
yes.
than the actual disease.
I'd rather just suffer with the pain after they run down this. Could cause this. You could die from this and have
Right.
3 legs and 3 arms. No, I'm sorry.
Right. Or like you can't think. And here I am as a neurologist, like I can't sacrifice my intelligence. But it was developing migraine headaches that brought me back to Ayurvedic medicine, because that was something my mom had actually raised us with. And we didn't even think of it as medicine. It was just like we ate a certain way, we meditated, we practiced yoga. It was just a way of living. And so here I was, completed my neurology residency, and this hotshot doctor came out, and I couldn't manage my own migraine headaches. So I went to go see an Ayurvedic practitioner, and through the evaluation, he really diagnosed me with a gut issue, which, of course, like I rolled my eyes with that diagnosis, because I was like, no, I've got migraine headaches. The migraines have nothing to do with my gut. And he put me on a program for gut healing, and within 3 months, my migraines were gone. I had lost 10 pounds. I didn't even know I had gained. My creativity went off the charts. And so that's when I started to realize that this quest I had for wanting to understand the brain and understanding the mind and this interface between mind and body, that I wasn't going to get that through my traditional training. So I really came to Ayurveda like crawling on my hands and knees, because I was suffering, and it took that to just deflate some of the ego and the arrogance that I think is a natural result of over a decade of training. You're feeling pretty good, you're feeling pretty smart, and it took my failure in treating myself to go, hold on, let me rethink this. Maybe there's something that I didn't learn even after all that training.
Wow. And listening to your connection between the gut and everything, it all I was kind of thinking of, reflexology
Uh-huh.
when they're playing with your feet and this is connected to that and that's connected
Yeah.
to that. So that's what I had a picture in my mind's eye, something along that line. So tell us about Ayurvedic medicine in general. I mean, what is it all about? You have these different types. Is it
Yeah.
food? Is it diet? I mean, what is it all about?
Well, Ayurveda is really, it's all about us. It's all about how we tick. It's like having a blueprint to figuring out how does Vincent work? How does Kulreet work? Like, how do each one of us actually work? Like, we have manuals for how our cars work. We get warranties on our appliances, but we don't ever get a manual or like a warranty on us. And so one of the core principles of Ayurveda is food is medicine, right? So it's really teaching you how to cook so that you can take care of your body. You can really take care of your mind also through your foods, and it turns your kitchen into a pharmacy. And everything is based on
A good pharmacy for
it's good
everybody that's listening.
pharmacy.
A good
Yes,
pharmacy.
a good pharmacy, like, a pharmacy for healing. And everything's based on this concept of the doshas, which are the mind body types. And there's three: there's vata, pitta, and kapha. And each one of these have unique characteristics. And we all have aspects of each one, but usually one or two is predominant. And based on which one's predominant, you can even predict like what kinds of conditions would this person have.
Oh, well, give us a little bit more insight about the
Sure.
three types, and then how does one find their particular type? Is there like an online test you can take or something like that?
Yeah, so we've created a bunch of information and an online test on our website, Dr. K Chaudhary, and you can go there to take the dosha test. But I really recommend like trying to get to know the doshas like you would a friend, like get to know the characteristics, because there's going to be different things that change which dosha becomes active. So vata is associated with the elements of space and air. And so you can already get some of the ideas of like what that dosha represents. So vata individuals, they tend to be smaller framed. Their energy tends to kind of fluctuate, can go up and down. And because of these fluctuating energies, they can have, fluctuating digestion as well. And when they're out of balance, they can be prone to things like insomnia and anxiety. Now, pitta individuals, they're made up of the elements of fire and water. Now, this might sound a little familiar. So, pitta individuals, they're very, very goal oriented. They're high achievers, and they tend to run a little on the hot side.
Type
And
A personalities.
a little more of like the type A personalities. Like Vata people, you can say are kind of a little bit more of like they're artistic, they're very creative. Pitta people are like, show me where the job is, let me get it done. And when they get out of balance, they can get inflammatory conditions. So like migraine headaches, this was what was causing my migraine headaches, was excess heat and inflammation. They have a tendency towards autoimmune conditions. A lot of the itises are associated with pitta, and skin conditions like rashes. And when they get really out of balance, they become like really impatient and angry. And again, all of these things can be altered just by the way you eat. And then the kapha dosha, which is the final dosha, is the bigger dosha. The elements are associated with water and earth, so it tends to be really grounded. So they're bigger build. They tend to be a little bit more steady in everything that they do. They have really good stamina. But when they get out of balance, they have a tendency towards obesity or gaining excess weight, sinus congestions, forming tumors. And so, when kapha gets really out of balance in the mind, it can lead to depression. So, this is again why we eat, to balance both the body and the mind according to our doshas. Because otherwise, haven't you been in that situation where there's some new food trend and like your partner or your kids or your best friend tries it and it's great for them, and then you try it and it's just absolutely horrible, and you go through all of this like trial and error where you go, I hear that this thing is anti-inflammatory. Well, is it anti-inflammatory for you? Like, who cares if it's not anti-inflammatory for you? So rather than doing all this guesswork, the doshas actually help you choose like just a specific number of interventions so you do exactly what you need to get back into balance.
Wow. And that word balance is coming up over and over and over again. It kind of reminds me of, pH type balance and making sure every
Well,
so
and it
it,
is. There is the biology. There is like this biochemistry to it. But Vince, I like looking at balance as a dynamic thing, meaning at different times you need like different things to create that type of balance. It's not just like you're on one fixed little path, but that's why I say get to know these doshas like you would a friend, so that when one is out of balance, like you have to take a dynamic plan to like, oh, okay, what do I need to do to bring this one back?
so what I'm hearing today is, it goes back to the old saying, you are what you
You
eat.
are what you eat. That's all of Ayurveda. You are what you eat. I know our parents and our grandparents and our grandparents totally got it. And there's even a saying in Ayurveda, as you eat, so is your mind. That your food really does determine the state of your mind. And Vincent, we're able to bridge this scientifically now by understanding the microbiome, which is the collection of all the bacteria and all the microorganisms that live inside you, that they have such a huge influence on your thoughts. And the majority of those guys live inside your gut. So that's the connection between food, the gut, and the brain.
Yeah, that's powerful, because we hear all these things that you should be taking antioxidants and some other stuff to increase the microbes in your gut. I mean, there's just so much information out
Yeah.
there. How do you know what's
You,
right?
you
How do you
don't. You don't. It's not personalized. And that's what's so frustrating is it's not personalized. So you're spending all this money, all this time trying to do something good, and it's wreaking havoc. Let me give you an example. If a Vata individual goes on a raw food diet, it's disastrous. I mean, absolutely disastrous, because that's the wrong kind of diet for their body type. And so just being on a raw food diet could lead to anxiety. You take a pitta individual and put them on all the fermented food, that's going to increase all of their heat. That's going to lead to like more headaches. You take a kapha person and put them on a high protein diet where they're mainly eating animal protein. Same thing. It's going to cause issues like depression. It's going to backfire on them. And that's why understanding your dosha makes it so much easier to take care of yourself. It's kind of like, if you have a Ferrari and you've got a manual for a Toyota and you're trying to figure out like why, why that information is not helping you drive your Ferrari.
Yeah. I mean, I try to break it down simple. I love the car analogy there because while you were talking, I was thinking, okay, certain type of cars take certain types of oil, and then
Exactly.
they take certain types of gasoline, certain
Exactly.
grades of octane. If you want to run high performance, you need to be at this level of octane. And so I guess when it
Exactly.
comes to your body, mind, and soul and spirit running at peak performance, you got
Yes.
to put the right stuff on the inside. So now help us to understand what are some of the best foods for each type and what are some of the worst foods for each type. And I'm talking about the dosha.
Absolutely. So for Vata, some of the best foods are warm, unctuous foods. So unctuous means oily. Vata, you need to ground it, right? So you want to be cooking things up, vegetables. And Vata gets grounded eating meat. And so it's the one dosha that we actually say, yes, this is good for helping Vata to ground out. And when I say unctuous, I mean using healthy fats like ghee. Vincent, have you ever heard of ghee, or have you ever eaten ghee?
I don't know. I may have eaten it and not have
Oh
known it.
no.
I'm
I
not
don't
gonna, I've traveled. I've been to Korea. I've
know.
been to Saudi Arabia. So I
You
may have
might have
eaten.
had it. Yeah.
Never.
Ghee is clarified butter. It's delicious. It's tastier than butter, but it's actually medicinal for a Vata individual. And the foods that really aggravate Vata are the foods that are like Vata. So in Ayurveda, Vincent, we have a saying that like increases like, and opposites are used as medicine. And so what that means is if you're eating a lot of things that are just like the qualities of your dosha, it creates an imbalance. And then eating the opposite of that is what is medicinal for you. So for Vata, eating foods that are like Vata, so things that are light and crispy, that would increase Vata. So we want to stay away from popcorn, from chips, from cold foods and beverages. And raw foods. And this is why a raw food is such disastrous, has such a disastrous outcome for vata. Now, for pitta individuals, they are naturally, they run hot, physically as well as mentally. And so we want cooling foods. So green leafy vegetables are great, except for spinach. Spinach is actually a little heating because of an acid it has in it. But green leafy vegetables in general are great. Melons are really cooling. Coconut water is fantastic. Coconut oil is a great oil to cook if you're pitta. And here's the antidote. I want you to give this a try. The antidote for pitta is aloe vera juice. Okay, taking some. Why did like your mom or your grandmother tell you this?
I have a story about that when you finish. Go ahead.
All right. So aloe vera juice is the antidote to pitta, and just like a tablespoon 1 to 3 times a day after meals with a little bit of warm water, that pulls pitta down, and it helps to get rid of all of the autoimmunity and all of the heat, so oftentimes associated with pitta. And so pitta doesn't do well with heating foods like red chilies, black pepper, alcohol, which is really heating, and fermented foods. So kombucha is disastrous for pitta individuals. Now, kapha is just a naturally vegan dosha. I always think of kapha as like the large elephants that are eating like grass and leaves and, all the other green stuff that elephants eat. Kapha is just naturally grounded, so it needs a really light diet. And so kapha does ideal with a vegan diet, so not a lot of dairy, not a lot of meat, and not a lot of sugar. Now, kapha does so well, though, with heated spices because it tends to be heavy and cold. So this is where you can add in, the chilies, the garlic, the onions, the black pepper, all the fun stuff is for the kapha dosha.
Wow. You started talking about the aloe
vera. I know. I want to hear now. What happened with aloe vera?
It's my late grandfather.
I knew it was going to be a grandparent. They always know.
We had aloe plants all over the place and grown up. Yeah. And back in the day, I'm age myself, we didn't have bottled water as we have it today. We used to empty the milk jug.
None of us did. Yeah.
We used to empty the milk jug. And we used to put water, and that was keep water cold. And my grandfather would always have his separate jug in there, but he would make aloe water with the aloe. Yes. And one day I was playing outside. I was really, really thirsty. I came in and I just grabbed the pitcher, and I thought it was regular water, and it was aloe water. And I thought I was gonna die. So I was like, no way am I drinking any aloe water. I'll take it and put it on my skin. But to actually drink it, I was like, oh my goodness. But my grandfather was here's in
where
great
it's
health.
Coming back to you. Now, here's the thing is when you take it medicinally, you just need a small amount. So it's just a tablespoon. But I feel so. You asked for my gift from God. Here is your gift. It's coming back to you from your grandfather. Did you say great grandfather or grandfather?
My grandfather, my father's father.
Your grandfather was totally right on. And what you should be doing is drinking aloe vera for your dosha type. We were talking about headaches before we started, and this is one of the fastest ways to get rid of headaches is just to do a tablespoon of aloe vera with a 1/4 cup of just warm water and take that after breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And in the beginning, you may have more bowel movements just because it's going to pull out all the excess heat out of your body. All right. So if you want to start in the beginning, start with just a tablespoon, but I promise you, and then follow the pitta diet of reducing the spicy foods. I promise you will notice a difference. You're going to notice a difference within a few weeks.
Wow. That sounds like what my grandmother used to call working medicine. Take you some of this working medicine. It works everything.
Love it. Now, how did your grandfather hear about aloe vera, though? Because it's a classic Ayurvedic herb that we use, but my mom too. We had it all over the house for the same reason. How did he find out about this?
I have no clue, but all of my grandparents, great grandparents, something happened, go out there and grab some of that aloe.
Yeah,
that's all. Right. Go grab some of that aloe and put
it. And how old was he? How long did he live?
My grandfather died my senior year in high school. So I was 18. My dad would have been 38. My grandfather should have been in his late 60s, 70s. But what happened, I finally found out he ended up having I think it was stomach cancer. Something
Oh gosh.
happened.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but I mean, but until the day he died, he was a very slender guy. He worked outside. I mean, as an older, I mean, he was just lifting stuff like it was nothing, even to his old
Yeah.
age. And that's why I say I need to like lose pounds because our body frames are the same, just like me and
Yeah,
my
you're
father.
just inflamed because you're pitta. And so what pitta gains, see your grandfather, I was going to say the aloe vera will keep you really young. That's why I was asking how long you lived, is for as long as you live, it'll keep you like really, really young and healthy. It's an anti-aging remedy but specifically it works really, really well for pitta. Um, and so what happens with pitta is when they're eating all of this hot food, they get inflamed and they build what I call fake fat. It's not real fat. It's all of this fluid that accumulates around your body from the inflammation, and you can't lose it through exercise because it's not fat. So the aloe vera, and by reducing the pitta aggravating foods I talked about, you'll just pee out that extra weight. It's the fastest way to lose weight
Wow,
because
that
it's
water
just
weight cut. Oh my God.
because
So
it's
I
water.
got to definitely find out my type after this. I'm going to go
Yeah.
to,
Well, I mean, I
and
can tell you you're a combination. You're Pitta Kapha. Those are your primary types, but it's the Pitta that's causing all the issues. So I would just focus on that. The Kapha is what's giving you like, your great voice, your cheerfulness, like, your groundedness, but it's the Pitta that's causing a little bit of the imbalance. So just go straight for the aloe vera and follow the Pitta pacifying diet.
I will. And tell my listening audience where they can find out this information from your great website. What is your website?
It says Dr. K. Chaudhary, and we have a link there to the dosha quiz. And I've got so many articles there on the doshas, how to balance the doshas, and fundamental concepts in Ayurveda. We're
All
gonna put
right.
your we're gonna put a reference to your grandfather. He was a great natural healer. I'm so
Uh,
impressed by that, Vincent. That's
uh,
awesome.
yeah, I was that memory sticks with me. Oh my
Well,
goodness.
our elders knew this stuff. My grandmother, like she used to cure her own conjunctivitis by just putting a little turmeric in her eyes. I mean, she never went to the doctor, and she lived into her 90s not on any medications.
Wow.
She used to always say, she's like, why am I still alive? And I was like, look at the way you eat. Like, it's going to
I,
take a lot to kill you.
a lot to get, and and I love, for me, I really love spicy foods. I mean,
But
it's
you
just
can't do it,
I
Vincent. That's
I
the
know.
whole downfall for. And everybody who has a vata imbalance loves raw food. Everybody who's a pitta imbalance loves spicy food, and everybody who has a kapha imbalance loves, ice cream and meat. But do you know why that is? It's because your imbalance changes your gut flora, and then the bacteria in your gut start craving the things that worsen the imbalance. It's this like massive
So
feedback loop.
so it goes back to that liking like attraction
Yes,
that you were talking about.
exactly. Yes.
Oh,
Nothing wants to die, but just you start the aloe vera. All right, Vincent, we started off this call with the show with a really beautiful prayer. I mean, you did a really beautiful prayer and you had this invocation. So I'm going to hold you to the intention that you set. Can I hold you to that?
hey, I'm a motivational speaker. Accountability is where it's at.
All right. So number one, I want you to give this aloe vera a try at least for a month. And now start with just a tablespoon at lunchtime, okay? And then build up. All right. But the other thing is I really want you to take a look at the pitta aggravating foods. And I want you to just make a goal of reducing that by 50%. You don't have to come off of everything, but I just want you to reduce that by 50% because I think this is going to make a really big difference.
Wow. Okay. I
All
will
right.
do it, doctor, and we'll
You're the
we'll
one who
stay in
set
touch.
this up. You set this
I,
up, man. You set this up. Like, it had to
hey,
be life altering.
hey, life also. Hey, and I started started my push-ups again and starting to do that because I just had got over my second foot surgery. I had my bunion corrected, and so we had to go in and take out the hardware, and so now I'm getting back and I want to do this, and it's just like you walk by that mirror with your shirt off, and it's like, mm. And then you look. And then you go back and you reminisce and you look at those photos when you were in the military and it's like on the
Yeah.
DMZ and I was like, whoo, I was like, That's what I want to. I mean, I know I've aged, but
Wait, no, no, but look, you've probably got your grandfather's genes, right? You said you guys have
yes,
the same build, and your
yes.
grandfather was slim because he didn't have the fake fat because he was taking the aloe vera. This is how
Mm,
simple it is. This is why I love Ayurveda. Is sometimes like these huge challenges we have in life where we're just like, God, why do I have this? And then you learn about your dosha and you're like, oh, it's very clear why I have this. I'm eating my way into this condition, and it's not like you have to stop everything. I didn't tell you stop everything. I said reduce it by 50% and add aloe vera and let's see where you're at.
mm. Okay. So
All
we have
right,
the
Mr.
website.
Speaker. We
I'm
got a
hey,
deal. We've
oh,
got a
we
deal.
have a deal. We
All
have
right.
a deal. I mean, we're gonna be worldwide here. And when I start looking good, I'm like, hey, look at what Doctor.
You're gonna come on and be like, I forgot my shirt. Where did I put my shirt? You're like,
Where's my shirt?
why isn't Vincent ever wearing a shirt anymore?
Oh my goodness, I'm loving this. And so we talked about foods. Are there any herbs or things like this? Because here's another thing. I'm going to talk about me because I talk about nobody. I love hot teas.
Yeah.
I love hot tea, and I am an Earl Grey man. They're not paying me as a sponsor or anything, but I love I love Earl Grey. So talk to us about herbs and teas and
You
things like
got
that
it.
that could help us with this whole food affecting mood and gut brain connection.
I love how you said food affects mood. So there's two things in addition to the aloe vera that I want you to do. I want your speakers, sorry, I want your audience to do. I'm looking at Mr. Speaker. I want Mr. Speaker's audience to do. It's like penetrating into my subconscious, Mr. Speaker. And so the first one is a homemade tea. And since you like tea, let's start with this recipe. It's just three ingredients, Vincent: cumin seeds, coriander seeds, and fennel seeds. And you can start with either half a teaspoon or a full teaspoon of each of those seeds. Now, the reason why I say you can start half a teaspoon or a full teaspoon is half a teaspoon is going to be a little weaker, and so your body can get used to it, and a full teaspoon is going to be a little stronger. Now, when I say your body's going to get used to it, this is going to help to pull out all the excess inflammation out of your body. Okay. So you add that to about 4 to 5 cups of water, let it boil for 5 to 10 minutes, depending again how strong you want it. Strain out the seeds, put it in a thermos. And then, Vincent, you just drink small sips of this all throughout the day. That's going to balance all three doshas. So these two tips I'm giving you are for balancing all three doshas.
Okay.
Now, remember when I said my kitchen is my pharmacy? Look, all of these things are in my kitchen. That's what I mean is like when I want to get healthy, I just go to my kitchen. The
Okay.
second supplement is also for all three dosha, and it's called Triphala. That's spelled Triphala, and it's made out of 3 berries and just 1,000 to 2,000 milligrams at night. Again, it's going to flush out the toxins from your gut. When you clear your gut, your health immediately improves and you are smarter, you are clearer, you have more energy, and then it makes making other changes in your life a lot easier. When you have a smart gut, you have a smart brain. That's why I always start with the gut first. Heal the gut and you can heal the mind, you can heal your mood, you can heal anything.
Wow. Can you repeat those three seeds again? What was
You
it? It
got
was
it.
cumin. It was cumin.
Cumin seeds, yep, coriander seeds, and fennel seeds. And equal portions of each, about half a teaspoon to a teaspoon. You just make a homemade tea. I bet you your grandfather was drinking that.
I don't know. I know he was drinking aloe water. That much I know. So wow. So I have to give up my Earl Greys and my
No,
lemon
let's
gingers and
let's let's do this because those are the Earl Grey increases pitta, the caffeine increases pitta, the lemon ginger definitely increases because those are heating. But let's do this.
oh,
We said only 50%, right? So what if
okay.
you do that only every other day? And this is what you're going to find, and this is what's so powerful about doing habits every other day, is on the days you don't do it, you're going to start noticing a difference, and then you're going to look at your foods and the teas a little differently. You're going to say, well, I didn't have a headache that day. I, wasn't as swollen on that day. Yeah, I don't think my ginger, tea's doing it for me. My ginger lemon tea's doing it for me. And that's what I mean by just knowing your dosha and then making the choices. Like instead of that, you could do a rose tea. A rose tea would actually really help. And have you ever had a rose tea? It's delicious.
No, I
Rose and
haven't. I mean,
chamomile.
Oh, see, now you sound
Mm,
like I get nothing for this, but that chamomile, because I drink the yogi bedtime has the
yeah.
chamomile. So
That's a good one. And the and one with that has rose and chamomile together, you're gonna
okay,
feel such a big difference.
well, see, I can deal with that. Now we talking. Now we
Now we're
talking.
talking. See,
Rose and chamomile.
you can, once I know your dosha, and this is true for anybody, like once you know your dosha, you can just go down the list of like the things you like to do and then just choose specific things that are going to support you.
Wow, this has truly been informative and challenging.
But if it's challenging, it means we've got it. We nailed it. Because if it's challenging, it means there's a fundamental habit that's leading to a chronic result that we're addressing. So
Yeah. And
you nailed it.
and I have a little bit of background as far as me being able to lose weight. It's because it's like once I change my diet, because
Yeah.
periodically I do some intermittent fasting,
Yeah.
and my
Yeah.
wife always looks at me and says, "You lose weight so quickly. All you have to do is just fast." And basically, what I do is that I just cut out all the stuff that I've been eating, and I drink water, and my waist just goes away. And I'm like, okay, is that all this water weight that I'm like,
Yes, but that is all the water weight. But what if I made it even easier for you? That what if you didn't even have to go to those extremes and it was just changing some of the foods around and just from doing that over the next few months, like just changing a few things with your food, adding the aloe vera, making the tea, maybe taking the trifla. What if that's all it took?
I'm in. I'm listening to you, and I know we're having fun, but I am totally serious about this. Is because I have a wedding that I have to participate in um, late September, October of this
Oh,
year.
you'll be able to get there,
Yeah,
whatever your
and
goals
so
are.
yeah, my goal is to look nice because it's my my no, it's my niece, and she's
Oh,
getting
got
married.
it.
And I remember
Yeah.
when she was born, and
Yeah.
she's asking me to walk her down the aisle and to
Oh, how
give her away.
sweet.
And so
Oh,
she
no,
wanted me
you
to go.
gotta look your best.
Oh, I gotta look tight because you're talking these little 20, 30 somethings, and
Yeah,
I gotta look sharp walking down. And they're not wearing traditional tuxedos and all that stuff. They're wearing, blazers and
yeah.
so I've got to
You
look
can't
good.
hide anything.
Can't
No,
hide it.
no.
Can't be like trying to.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely going to do this. Is there anything outside of what we talked about that you'd like to share with the listening audience today to help them become better at connecting this whole body, mind, soul, spirit, and cleaning out their gut?
The big thing is not to get overwhelmed with taking the big steps. And instead, it's when you do the small steps on a daily basis, those are what make the real change. And so sometimes people feel like if they're going to change, they've got to like throw out their spouse, quit their job, move out of their city. Like that, I've got to do all this stuff to feel better. And nothing could be further than that from the truth. Do one thing that is specifically balancing for your dosha. So I gave you like several things today, but find out your dosha and then just do one thing that is specifically balancing for your dosha and you will see the immediate effects of that. That's how easy it is. Like when you know what gas to put in, like if we take that much care of our cars that we know what type of gas to put into it to make it run better, wouldn't you want to know that knowledge for yourself and just put in the right gas and you'll see how quickly you run faster.
Most definitely. And if you're telling me the most of the stuff that I have is fake fat, let's go.
Yeah.
I gotta get rid of this, so I can get back down to what they would consider my ideal weight. Because when I tell most people I have to lose weight, they're like, "From where?" It's
No,
like, you
that's
don't.
that's the whole challenge with fake fat though. It's this like layer of swelling that encompasses like your whole body. And the person who's living in it can feel it because
Oh
it's
yeah,
uncomfortable. You're like,
very.
and you're like, how did my fingers get fat? They didn't, they're swollen.
Yeah, and that's the key with me, and especially since I deal with the lupus aspect, every now and again when I have a flare, which are very very rare, I get the swelling of the
Yeah.
joints. It doesn't
That's
affect my internal organs.
no,
For
but that's
me,
all
it's
pitta, Vincent. That's all pitta. That's what the aloe vera is going to take care of.
yes, yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am.
Am I channeling your grandfather now?
Now,
Vincent, drink your aloe vera.
hell of a now you got your grandma now. When you say, yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am, yes, you don't mess with
You don't.
you
That's
don't
true.
mess with granny.
It was the same. It was the same in my family. You do not mess with your grandmother.
You can get away with saying stuff, but you don't mess with grandma.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
no, no.
I get it.
So as we bring this wonderful dynamic conversation to a close, when you look at Ayurvedic medicine, what do
Mhm.
you think are some of the biggest misconceptions about it, and why most people say, "Nah, I'm not going that way"?
One, I think people think it's old and it's from another country, and so it must not be relevant for us. But I actually think it's more relevant now because it's harder to be human now than it was back then. And we have so many of like the challenges that people had from thousands of years taken care of. Like we've got running water, we have climate control. Like this is the time where knowing just a few things can really, really impact your health because we've gotten so many of the other things taken care of. Like we're not worried about, food supplies in general. Like we have access to these things because of how we have created the modern world. But what we're missing is an understanding of ourselves. And so I think that's the biggest misconception. And I think the other one is like, you've got to just change everything. And no, it's like you just change a few core things. Like you don't have to become Indian. You don't have to eat only Indian food. It was a global medical system at a time, meaning this is how human beings lived on the planet. But for some reason, it's been kept. The tradition's been kept alive in certain areas, and that's why I studied this in India. But if you go like to shamanic traditions or even some of the ancient traditions like in Russia and in Africa, you'll find similar types of medicine, or the Native Americans here in America, you'll find these traditions because this is just how we understood how to take care of being human.
Wow. Now, when you said something about Indian food, it just took
Huh?
my mind back. So I gotta
To
ask.
the
You
spicy
know,
curries.
well, no. There was this Indian restaurant here in Tallahassee, Florida. That's where I am.
Uh-huh.
But they're no longer in existence. But they used to make this cat this cabbage
Oh,
that
yeah,
was
I know what
just
you're talking about. So
this
good. Yeah.
out of this, and I want a
My mouth is
recipe
watering.
for that type of. I mean, it was just great, and they knew me because I would call on the phone. It's like, do you have the cabbage on the buffet? And sometimes when I go in and they wouldn't have it, they would actually make it for me. But it was, as they was, to die for. I mean, it was great. Do you have a recipe
Well, it's
for
really simple. Here's the thing though, Vincent,
the
is
cat?
that all of these things are just the basic healing spices. This is what, again, why I said my kitchen is my pharmacy, is you're just taking the basic spices in Indian foods that and they're used also to treat disease, but things like turmeric, cumin, coriander powder, fennel, all of the things that I was mentioning before, and they're just fried in ghee, and then you add the vegetables. We make that cabbage in my house, and I'm always surprised because
Oh
I'm
my!
like, people are always like, "Oh, cabbage." I'm like, "No, no, no.
No,
Cabbage
that
is
cabbage is
delicious."
that cat. I'll pay you for your recipe offline. That I'm just when you talked about Indy, that's the first thing that because my webmaster, she loved Indian food, and when she would be in town, say, "Oh, let's go to the Cabbage Patch." That's what I
Yeah.
called the Indian restaurant
Oh,
because
that's
of that.
funny. I thought you were actually
Because
talking about a cabbage.
no, because
I'll give you my recipe. My recipe for that powder, curry powder, it's in my book, The Prime, and it's
okay,
just
and
the
I'll get a
prime curry
copy.
powder. Yeah, it's just there, and then you add some ghee. Now you're going to cook with it on purpose. You're going to add some ghee, add that recipe, add that curry powder in, and then you cook the cabbage, and you can add like a little bit of tomato paste, but that's all it takes to create that. It's not
Oh,
hard, and it
oh,
actually is healing.
oh well, it was good. So now you got me in my
Now I
kitchen
got
now
you.
with the cabbage. I mean that is just
You're funny.
excellent. So my listening audience, I just know you've truly been blessed today by listening to Dr. Colry and her telling us all these things that can help us with food and our mood and the gut brain connection so that we can live better lives, lead more productive lives,
Yeah.
lead a better quality of life. Because what is it to have life when you can't do anything if
Yeah.
it's not a quality life? And one of the things that comes to my mind is a quote, because I see it all the time, because I work for the Department of Health as well, and they have it in the stairs. And it says, the first wealth is health.
Yeah.
And truly today, the doctor has told us a lot that can help us, that affects our health. My final question for you, doctor, today is, what matters most to you?
Kindness and making sure that people feel cared for and loved. The people I work for and with, and my family and my friends, that at the end of the day, the last day of my life, I want to be able to look back at my life and say there was a lot of kindness and love.
Kindness and love. And
Yeah.
we'll leave on that note. Doctor, it has truly been a pleasure listening and learning from you, because at the end, I was waiting on that inspiring, but you gave me the recipe for the cabbage. So now this show has definitely been informative, challenging, and inspiring right here on Mr. Speaker Speaks. Thank you so very much for being a great and wonderful guest on today's show. My listening audience, you know where you can find me, VincentTEdwards.com. And I always say that life is all about purpose. And the question becomes, do you know yours? Do you know your purpose? Remember, in all that you do, be magnificent. And until next time, be good, be blessed, but most of all, be a blessing to someone.
Mm.